Welcome back. Today, what we're going to do is talk about thinking models. Why is it important for us to consider thinking models? Is because if you understand how you are comfortable about thinking, what are the things you need to be successful in your thinking, as well as you understand what somebody you're working with, the way they think, you have a better chance of building a stronger team and being more effective working together, and also yourself being more effective. So understanding how we think is important in our ability to successfully execute projects and achieve the goals we set for ourselves. And also it bleeds into our ability to be able to communicate with others. So in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and talk about the thinking models. Okay, if you're working in many organizations, they put you through a Myers-Briggs personality test. It's a bit of an expensive and extensive test, and it costs money to do it. So we would done something that is kind of similar to that, gets most of the data, but is not as professionally developed as Myers-Briggs. And this type of modeling we call the Herrmann Brain Dominance Model, or HBDM. Okay, so that's kind of the models we're gonna work with. When we talk about thinking modes or thinking models, we are talking about this particular model, and we'll go through and describe what it is. So the way this model works is tries to categorize folks in four different axes, different vectors. So they basically think of if a person is more analyzer. Well, what does that mean? That means if a person really needs to have lots of facts, lots of data that fit together logically, that they really kind of are, everything they do is based on logic, based on data and facts. And that's how they think. That's what convinced somebody to do something. Another attribute or another mode of thinking is as a manager. So this moniker of manager is used to refer to someone who's very detail oriented. They need to make sure that everything is lined up step by step, and they really like to make sure everything is tested, proven before they do it. So the reason they call managers, if you have a manager, they're mostly planners. They don't like risk and things like that. So that's where the word comes from. And then another type of mode of thinking or attribute for folks is partner. This would be a case for somebody who really thrives and all of their energy goes into working with other people, making sure everybody's happy, making sure everybody's taken care of. They really, data or being right or testing things is really not their thing. They just want to make sure that they make good connection with their partners, make good connection with other human beings, and everybody's happy in the role. Okay, and so those are called partners, or that attribute is called partner. The last one is called visionary. That would be the attribute for folks who are really forward thinking. They really, once they know how to do something, they're bored. They always want to look for new ways, different ways. They really like risk. They really like new things that they don't know what the outcome is and things like that. So these are kind of like the creative types, okay? So this would we call a visionary. So there are the four attributes. And now nobody is all in one type of mode or another mode. And actually, in some cases, we even, depending on what problem we are working on, we kind of increase in one mode of thinking versus the other. But it's kind of nice to analyze yourself just to figure out where your normal situation is. For example, someone may come in with this score, and we'll talk about how you score, how you evaluate yourself and give yourself a score. But somebody who has an A is 35, M is 20, and P is 15, and V is 30, what we do, we graph it kind of like this. We say, okay, so what can you say about this person? You can say about this person that they kind of like, if they're most comfortable, they're kind of creative, they're visionary, they're creative, and they like facts and data. So they need, most of the time, if you want to convince this person or the way this person makes decision, likes facts and data, likes newer things, like innovative things, is really not as much detail oriented and planner, or really doesn't emphasize the relationship with other folks. Notice it's not zero on these. It just means it's less of that. If push comes to shove, if the decision has to be made based on fact or somebody's happy, they're going to go with the facts and the data, okay? Or if there's a difference between doing it the old-fashioned way or coming up with the new way, they're going to be wanting to go the new way, even if though it's a little more risky. So that's the kind of thing this model tells us. And this is kind of useful not only for that, but you can even look at it. For example, when we looked at engineers pre-1970, engineers used to work by themselves and all that. So there were, anybody who was highly analytical and data fact driven would do really well. They really didn't have to be innovative. They really didn't have to be, work with other people or be detailed planners. So as the time has gone by and teams have grown and there are more people involved and all that, and innovation is really the key for the success in this field. If you do the same thing, you're going to be out of business or you will not be successful. So in those cases, as we move, same engineer, except 30 years later, in the 2000s to 2020, whatever, they really need to not only be good in analytics, they also have to be able to work with people, keep people happy, and also they need to be somewhat innovative. It's the management portion still is not a big deal, but these two other factors, you can notice the shape of that curve has changed to move forward. When you think about teams, when you think about organizing a group of people together to work together, you really need to be thinking about how they are. For example, we've got two people here. One is more of a visionary, one is more of an analytical. So there's an overlap here. This is called the area of agreement, because that's the area of, if a problem comes up and they're in that space, both of them are going to come up more or less with the same type of an answer. So that's called the area of agreement. But the problem is, since both of them are thinking the same way, why would you have two people in your team? You're not building, you're not out there, cutting wood or whatever. So more people is not better. You're trying to come up with new solutions and new design. So if one person can come up with what, you have two of them. So this is area of agreement, is where people can communicate with each other really well. They get along, they kind of agree with each other all the time in this space of agreement, but they're not really making a contribution to the projects because they're all thinking the same way. So this area that's non-overlap is called the area of contribution. Well, because these are not overlap, they're going to be thinking different ways. This person has been looking at new innovative ways of doing it. This one is looking at data and how the data tells them what to do next. So they're going to be conflicts between them. In other words, their communication is not going to be as well between them, but they're each going to come up with a new solution, which is different from each other. So that's why they call it areas of contribution. So as you can see, understanding how we think, understanding how other people think, not only plays a role in building a successful team, but also understanding ourselves. We know how and why we are making certain decisions. So it's a pretty important field. We have a tool here which allows you to rank yourself, and as one of the assignments, if you is for you to go ahead and rank yourself. And it's a relatively simple tool. What you do, you ask yourself these questions and give yourself 1 to 4. 4 meaning, yeah, this is my way of doing it. 1 is, not really, that's not my way of doing it. So 1 is really low probability you're going to do this. 4 is very high probability you're going to do this. So for example, you might be asking yourself, here are the questions you'll ask, and I'll go ahead and put points down. So for A, it says A, in a project, you prefer to work with data and fact. Let's say, yeah, kind of, not really that high, but yeah, I kind of like to do that. So I'm going to give myself a 3. It's more likely that I want data than less likely. Develop a plan and a schedule. Yes, half and half. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't do it. It's really not on my list of things. Meet and discuss ideas with others. Yeah, I really like to do that. So that may give me for sure. Look for broader, newer ideas. I just make a 4. So you go through every one of these questions and you basically you give yourself a number, okay, between 1 and 4. 4 likely, 1 and so for example, your best learn new ideas by actually applying them to an actual situation. For me, that's absolutely true. So I'm going to give myself a 4. Conduct a careful analysis, not as much. Discuss with others, maybe. And thinking of new ways of doing that. So you just keep going. There's a bunch of questions here, and you just go through each one of these questions and answer and put the scores in there. So when you get to the very bottom, all you do, you take every column and add it. Let's say we get a 30. Let's say here we get a 35 on this one. You know, and let's say we get 26 here and 40. 30 here and 10 here. Okay, so if you finish this and those are the scores we get, then all we have to do is basically plot this, and that will tell us what our way of thinking is our normal mode is. So this 35 was a score for A. For A was 35, and I think the second one was manager, I'm going to guess, and then that would be a 20 something was here, and then for the visionary, maybe it was let me just go up there and make sure I'm getting the numbers correctly. Okay, so some, I'm just going to write it here so I know which number is which. So the first column is A, so I got 35 for A, 26 for M, 30 for P, and 10 for V. So all I do is then go back to the graph and put those numbers on. So A, we had 35. And then we have 26 for M and 30 for P. Down here somewhere. And then 10 for this. So this person basically, the graph would be kind of like this. So this person is highly analytical. So if you want to convince this person, or the way this person most of the time makes decision, it's based on data and facts. It wants to kind of, is more safer than going for the new idea as a planner, needs to have detail and likes to work with people. So was good with people, or likes to work with people, is going to give preference if a solution helps other people and keep everybody happy versus some other skill. So that's kind of the usefulness of this. This is called the radar chart. It's a way for us to describe all that data in one graph. Okay. So that's called the brain model that we are using here, and you're going to have a little bit of assignment at the end of the chapter to apply this whole concept. Let's take a look at problem 1, 2, 3. Is what you're going to, some of the questions that are being asked. So complete a self-explanation of HBDM. Just go through all those questions, answer, and kind of graph yourself to see where you are. Some questions about, what's the description of areas of agreement and contribution. Remember what they were. One tells you where you are overlapping with other people. One says where you're not overlapping is the areas that you're going to come up with different ideas. Okay. So those are pretty much some of the questions, some of the ways of moving forward to learn more about this whole thinking models. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this topic, which covered thinking modes assessment based on Herrmann whole brain models or whole dominance mode, thinking modes. So that brings us to the end of this video, and thanks for watching.